Tonight, we're following one of the oldest questions between two species who chose each other. How does a single act of stroking create a chemical bond in your cat's brain that builds into lifelong attachment? For anyone who has ever watched a cat settle against them in the dark and wondered whether what was happening between them was real, science has been quietly building an answer. Your love was never going unnoticed. It was being read in ways you didn't have words for yet. Welcome to Sleepy Animal Psychology. Wherever you are right now, perhaps in the quiet of a room that has gone still for the night, perhaps with the particular warmth of an animal somewhere nearby, we'll move through 100 relaxing facts about how cats feel your love. From the neurobiology of a purr pressed against your ribs, to the way a cat maps your heartbeat from across the room, to the quiet science of why your presence is their deepest form of rest. Eyes and breathe deeply. You're where a warm weight has settled into the slowest part of you. Let your mind soften like a cat that chose to stay. And now we begin. A cat is sitting on a lap right now, eyes half closed. Not asleep, but not quite awake. Its chin has dropped. Its paws have uncurled. This is not indifference. This is a nervous system that has decided it is safe. Researchers call this affiliative resting behavior, and it is one of the clearest signals a cat can send. Cats descended from solitary hunters who had no evolutionary reason to seek bodily contact with another species. The fact that they do, and that their brain chemistry changes measurably when they do, is one of the more quietly notable things behavioral science has documented in recent decades. A cat choosing to rest on you is not a small thing. It is a specific decision made by an animal whose ancestors made no such decisions. When something that didn't have to choose you chooses you anyway, you feel it differently. A cat presses its forehead against a human hand and holds there for a moment longer than necessary. This is called bunting, and it is one of the primary ways cats transfer their own scent to objects and individuals they have decided belong to their world. The sebaceous glands concentrated in a cat's forehead and cheeks release pheromones that function as social bookmarks, a chemical annotation that means this is mine, and I am safe here. Studies show cats bunt most frequently against individuals they spend the most time in close proximity with, and the behavior increases in frequency following periods of separation. What feels like a gentle headbutt is, in the cat's neurological language, closer to a signature. The cat is writing itself into the space around you. There is a kind of claiming that feels like tenderness. A cat is purring, and the sound fills a quiet room the way a low fire does. Steady, sourceless, warm. The purr is produced by rapid movement of the laryngeal muscles, roughly 25 to 150 cycles per second, causing the glottis to dilate and constrict as the cat breathes in and out. What makes the purr distinctive is that it occurs on both the inhale and the exhale, creating a continuous sound rather than an intermittent one. This is neurologically different from most vocalizations in mammals. Research suggests that the specific frequency range of a domestic cat's purr, 25 to 50 Hertz, overlaps with the vibrational frequencies studied in orthopedic research for their potential to stimulate bone density and soft tissue repair. A cat may be in a very literal sense, generating something useful. The body near which it rests may be receiving something measurable. Some comfort is physical before it is anything else. A cat watches a person move around a room and tracks them not with its head but with the small adjustments of its ears. Cats have 32 individual muscles controlling each ear, compared to 6 in the human ear, allowing them to rotate, tilt, and angle each ear independently. This is not idle curiosity. It is active monitoring. Cats in multi-person households learn to identify individual humans by their gait patterns, their particular sounds, the rhythm of how they move through a space. Researchers studying cat-human communication found that cats respond differently to the footsteps of their primary caregiver than to other adults, slowing their activity, orienting their bodies, and in some cases moving toward the sound before the person enters the room. The cat was listening for you specifically. It knew the weight of your step. Being recognized before you arrive is one of the quieter forms of being known. A cat slow blinks at a human across a room. The eyes narrow. The lids descend. There is a pause, and then a gradual reopening. This gesture, sometimes called a cat kiss in popular writing, has now been studied formally. Research published in 2020 by Tasmin Humphrey and colleagues at the University of Sussex, involving 21 owner cat pairs and 24 unfamiliar human-cat pairs, demonstrated that cats are significantly more likely to slow blink in response to a human who initiates the gesture toward them. When unfamiliar humans slow blinked at cats, those cats were more likely to approach them than in no-blink control conditions. The slow blink appears to function as a cross-species signal of non-threat, of comfort, of deliberate openness. In cat body language, direct, sustained eye contact is associated with aggression. Closing the eyes, even briefly, says, "I am not watching for danger. I am here with you." The softest thing you can offer another creature is your willingness to look away. A cat needs, pushing its front paws rhythmically into a soft surface, alternating left and right, sometimes with eyes half closed and a low purr underneath. This behavior originates in kittenhood, where the same motion stimulates milk flow from the mother. The fact that adult cats continue this behavior toward humans and soft objects throughout their lives suggests it carries emotional rather than functional significance. Researchers describe it as a retained juvenile behavior associated with feelings of comfort, safety, and contentment. Studies suggest that oxytocin, the bonding neuropeptide, may be released during kneading in cats, drawing on the same neurochemical system active during nursing. A cat kneading on your lap is returning, in some measure, to the state of being completely cared for. You became, in that moment, something that feels like the safest place it has ever known. To be the thing a creature returns to when it needs to feel held, that is not nothing. T.S. Chin on a human's ankle and stays. This is not accidental body placement. It is deliberate. Cats in close human relationships show consistent preferences for physical contact at specific body sites. The chest, the lap, the crook of an elbow, the space between the feet. Behavioral ecologists note that these preferences are individually stable, meaning a cat that prefers to rest against your legs will continue to do so across months and years. Even as other environmental factors change, this consistency is significant. Cats are not known for behavioral rigidity. They adapt rapidly to new environments, new people, new routines. The fact that their contact preferences towards specific individuals remain stable over time suggests that these preferences are attached not to a location but to a person. The warmth they seek is yours, specifically. Some animals find their place in the world, and it turns out to be you. A cat vocalizes, a short, chirping trill, as a person enters a room. This sound, sometimes called a chirrup or trill, is distinct from the meow and from the purr, and is used almost exclusively in social contexts. Behavioral research shows that cats trill most frequently toward individuals. They share a strong affiliative bond with their primary caregivers, familiar humans. Occasionally, other cats they are closely bonded with. Kittens trill toward their mothers as a greeting. Adult cats who trill toward humans appear to be extending this greeting behavior across species. It is communicative in a specific sense. It is not a request for food or attention. It is not a distress signal. It is an acknowledgement of arrival. The cat noticed you were gone and noticed you came back. There is a difference between being present and being noticed. The cat makes that distinction visible. A cat follows a human from room to room, not soliciting anything, not vocalizing, simply staying within the same radius. Veterinary behaviorists call this proximity-seeking behavior, and it is considered a reliable indicator of attachment in companion animals. Unlike dogs, whose proximity-seeking evolved through centuries of selective breeding for cooperation, cats were not domesticated with attachment as a goal. Their proximity-seeking behavior toward humans appears to have developed through individual learning, each cat, in its own life, discovering that a specific human is a source of safety and comfort worth staying near. The behavior is not uniform across all cats or all humans. It is selective. Cats who exhibit strong proximity seeking toward one person may show none of it toward another. The cat is not following people. It is following you, being chosen, specifically, not as a category, but as a person. Changes what following means. A cat is asleep in the same room as a human. Its body positioned so that its back faces a wall and its face faces the person. This is not coincidence. Cats are crepuscular hunters who remain partially alert even during rest, and the positioning of their sleeping body communicates something about their threat assessment of their environment. Sleeping with the back to a wall and the face toward the primary social figure suggests that the cat has classified that person as the most reliable source of safety in the space. Research in comparative psychology notes that cats are more likely to sleep in close proximity to their primary caregivers than to other adults in the household, and that cats in secure human-cat relationships show lower physiological stress markers, reduced cortisol, slower heart rate, when their caregiver is present during rest. The cat is not just sleeping near you, it is sleeping better because of you. Here, at Fact 10, something becomes clear. The bond these 100 facts trace is not one-sided. The cat's nervous system knows you are there. It rests differently when you are. A cat presents its belly, rolling onto its back, front paws folded, stomach exposed. This posture requires a specific neurological condition, the absence of perceived threat. The ventral surface of a cat is its most vulnerable region, vital organs with no skeletal protection. Exposing it voluntarily is a behavioral signal that the animal feels sufficiently safe to offer its most undefended part. Crucially, the belly display in cats does not function as an invitation to touch. Research consistently shows that many cats respond to ventral petting with defensive behaviors, even from trusted caregivers. The gesture is not "pet me here." It is something closer to "I am safe enough in this place with you to be vulnerable." The trust is being shown. It is not being offered as a transaction. Some forms of openness are not requests. They are simply evidence. A cat learns its owner's schedule before the owner has consciously recognized there is a schedule. Cats show anticipatory behavior, positioning themselves near a door, becoming more active, vocalizing, approximately 5 to 10 minutes before a caregiver typically returns home. Even in the absence of obvious auditory or visual cues, studies exploring this phenomenon have attempted to isolate the mechanism, ruling out scent carried through ventilation and timing cues from regular domestic sounds. No single mechanism has been definitively established, though researchers have proposed that cats may be sensitive to very low-frequency vibrations or subtle olfactory changes that precede a person's arrival, possibilities that remain under investigation. What the cat knows before you arrive, science is still carefully measuring. There are things known about you that cannot be fully explained. A cat rubs its body along a human's legs in a fluid, continuous motion. Side, then flank, then tail dragging lightly along the shins. This is called allorubbing, and in feral cat colonies, it occurs primarily between cats who share a social bond, mothers and offspring, siblings, long-term group members. The behavior transfers scent from both individuals, creating a shared chemical signature that marks social affiliation. When domestic cats allorub against humans, they appear to be extending this colony behavior across species, treating the human as a member of the same social group. Research in feline behavior finds that allorubbing in cats is associated with affiliative states, and that mutual contact between cat and human produces measurable changes in bonding hormones in both parties. The same chemistry of closeness that operates between cats operates, in some measure, between cat and person. The chemistry of closeness is older than any species that practices it. A cat brings a caught mouse, or a toy, or a leaf, or nothing at all, and deposits it at the feet of a human. This behavior, sometimes called gift-giving in popular accounts, is more precisely understood as resource-sharing behavior observed in cats who show strong social bonds. Mother cats bring prey to kittens as part of teaching hunting behavior. Adult cats, who bring objects to humans, appear to be enacting a social behavior that has outlived its original function. The impulse to share a resource with a valued member of the group persists even when the resource is a piece of string or a hair tie. The cat is not confused about what it is offering. It is expressing, in the language it has, that you are worth offering things to. Whether you want a dead mouse is a separate question. Generosity expresses itself in whatever vocabulary is available. A cat sits directly on a book, a laptop, a newspaper. Whatever the person it is bonded with is currently focused on. This behavior, reliably observed in cats with strong human attachments, has been variously interpreted as attention-seeking, territorial, or thermal comfort-seeking. Behavioral research suggests the most straightforward explanation. The cat is seeking proximity to the specific human, and the object in use represents the location of that human's current attention. By positioning itself on the object, the cat positions itself within the zone of the caregiver's focus. It is not trying to obstruct. It is trying to be where you are looking. The cat has learned that your gaze goes somewhere specific for long periods, and it wants to be in that place. Some creatures will arrange themselves entirely around where your attention lives. A cat shows what researchers call the tail-up greeting, approaching a human with its tail raised vertically, sometimes with a slight curve at the tip. This posture is used between cats who share a close social bond, most frequently between cats who are cohabitants of the same household and have established positive relationships. Kittens use the tail-up approach toward their mothers as a greeting and solicitation signal. Research on feral cat colonies found that tail-up behavior was primarily directed toward familiar, affiliatively bonded individuals. It was not observed toward unfamiliar or antagonistic cats. When a cat approaches you tail-up, it is using the greeting it reserves for those it is closest to. It is offering you the posture it first learned for the ones it came from. The warmest things we learn to do, we first learn to do for someone else. A cat vocalizes differently toward its primary caregiver than toward strangers. Researchers studying cat communication have documented that cats develop individually unique vocal repertoires in response to their specific caregivers over time, a process of bidirectional vocal adaptation that has no parallel in cat-to-cat communication. Cats do not meow at adult cats. The meow appears to be a vocalization specifically refined in domestic cats for communicating with humans. Studies comparing recordings of the same cat's vocalizations toward its primary caregiver versus strangers find consistent differences in frequency, duration, and acoustic structure. The cat is not using a general-purpose call. It developed, over its life with you, a vocabulary tuned to you specifically. Language is always shaped by who you are speaking to. A cat notices when a person in its household is sad. This observation, long anecdotal, has received increasing empirical support. Studies assessing cat behavior during owner emotional states find that cats show significantly more affiliative behaviors. Approaching, sitting in closer proximity, initiating contact, when their owners display behavioral cues associated with distress, including crying, slower movement, and reduced social engagement. Cats appear sensitive to at least some of these behavioral signals, and their responses suggest a form of emotional attunement. Though researchers are careful to distinguish this from empathy, as defined in human psychology, what can be said is that the cat's behavior changes in response to yours in a consistent direction. When you are less, it comes closer. It does not look away. There is a particular form of attention that arrives most reliably when you are at your lowest. A cat can distinguish its owner's voice from a stranger's voice and responds differently to each, without turning to look. A study published in Animal Cognition recorded cats in their home environments and played recordings of their owner's voice, a stranger's voice, and a third person's voice, calling the cat's name. Cats showed significantly more behavioral responses: ear rotation, head turning, pupil dilation, tail movement, to their owner's voice than to the others, even when no visual confirmation was available. This discrimination persists even when the content of the words is held constant. It is not what you say that the cat is responding to. It is the specific acoustic signature of you. Your voice has a shape in the cat's brain. It has been mapped, stored, and made meaningful. Some things are known entirely by the sound they make. A cat sleeps more deeply when in physical contact with its primary caregiver. Studies on companion animal sleep suggest that cats show altered sleep architecture in the presence of trusted individuals, with research indicating that the restorative phases of sleep, associated with memory consolidation and neurological repair, may increase in duration when the cat rests in close proximity to a familiar, bonded person. During solo sleep, cats appear to maintain a higher degree of partial arousal. The evidence points toward a measurable physiological change. The cat's brain may be settling more deeply because you are there. The body it has learned to trust is yours. It is not metaphor. It is sleep biology, being trusted enough to be slept next to, deeply. That is a specific kind of intimacy. A cat headbutts, or, more precisely, performs a hard bunting against the face of a sleeping human. This behavior, which caregivers often describe as being woken by a cat pressing its forehead firmly into their cheek or chin, is a high-intensity affiliative gesture. The degree of force and directness of the bunt correlates with bond strength in behavioral assessments. More firmly bonded cats bunt harder and more directly toward the facial region of their caregivers. The face-directed bunt specifically targets the area richest in human scent markers, and some ethologists suggest this reflects the cat's most explicit marking behavior, claiming the face of the person as unmistakably within its social world. The cat woke you because it wanted to be sure you knew it was there. It was writing its name on you again. There is affection that is not gentle. It is no less sincere. For that, a cat monitors its owner's breathing. Research in veterinary behavioral science has found that cats in close human-animal relationships show behavioral synchronization with their caregivers' sleep cycles, adjusting their own rest patterns to align with periods when the human is deeply asleep versus lightly sleeping. Some researchers have proposed that this monitoring may involve olfactory sensitivity to the volatile compounds humans exhale during different sleep stages. Though this mechanism has not been fully established, cats' olfactory systems are estimated to be far more sensitive than humans, making it plausible that they can detect shifts in a person's physiological state passively from across a room It has been paying a quality of attention to you that you may never have known about. The attention that asks nothing of you is sometimes the most thorough. A cat uses the same neurological pathway to bond with a human caregiver as kittens use to bond with their mothers. Research in comparative neurobiology suggests that oxytocin release in cats during positive interactions with their primary human caregivers activates the same hypothalamic limbic circuit involved in maternal bonding. If this holds, it means the attachment a cat forms to a specific human is not a modified version of feline social bonding. It is, neurochemically, the same architecture as the first bond a cat ever formed. The human who becomes a cat's primary caregiver has prostic, through accumulated interactions, been placed near the neurological coordinates of the first safe place it ever had. You became the origin, the place before everywhere else. To be loved the way something was first loved. That is a very old kind of place to occupy. A cat that has been separated from its caregiver for several days shows behavioral changes consistent with separation distress. Reduced food intake, increased vocalization, altered sleep patterns, and increased vigilance that resolve upon the caregiver's return. These findings indicate that the cat's attachment to its primary caregiver meets several criteria for what psychologists call a secure attachment relationship. A 2019 study by Kristin Vitale and colleagues at Oregon State University formally assessed cats using a secure-based test, an abbreviated version of the Strange Situation Protocol used to categorize infant caregiver attachment, and found that 3% of kittens showed a secure attachment style toward their primary caregiver, a proportion comparable to what is observed in human infants and dogs. The attachment is not incidental. It is the same category of bond. What you built together was, by scientific definition, a secure place. A cat returns to its caregiver after a brief separation, not for food, not for play, but simply to re-establish proximity. This reunion behavior, observed in cats with secure attachment orientations, is the behavioral anchor of the oxytocin loop. The next 75 facts will continue to trace. The cat's brain, after separation, generates a mild stress response. Contact with the caregiver, visual, olfactory, or tactile, reduces cortisol and restores baseline physiological calm. The return is not sentimental. It is biological. The cat is returning to the thing that makes its body feel like itself again. And we have just arrived at the first milestone of a journey that began, perhaps, 10,000 years ago, when a small one-eyed cat first decided that the warmth of a human fire was worth the risk of proximity. 25 facts in, and the answer to the central question is already assembling itself. Every stroke you offer enters a body built, over a lifetime, to receive it. Let your breathing slow now. There is nothing required of you for a moment. You are also an animal, resting in the dark. Your breathing is already doing what breathing does. Moving in, moving out, steadying the body without being asked. Somewhere in your chest, there is a rhythm, slow, continuous, not so different from the low vibration of a cat at rest against you. That particular hum, in the range that research has found worth studying for its warmth. Notice the weight of your body, the specific warmth of the surface beneath you, the particular quality of the quiet in this room. These are the things a cat reads in you before it decides to stay. You are already, in the most physical sense, a safe place. You have been this entire time. Allow that to settle. We continue. Oxytocin, 3 weeks old, needs its mother's belly and purrs. Its eyes are only recently open. What it knows of the world so far is warmth, vibration, and the specific scent of the one body it has been against since before it could see. This is where the oxytocin loop begins. Not in any relationship between cats and humans, but in the original bond between mother and offspring, whose neurological architecture will later be extended. In some cats, across species, the first chemical map a cat makes is of its mother's scent, warmth, and heartbeat rhythm. Everything it will later seek in a trusted companion echoes this first map. The human who earns a cat's full trust is placed in the cat's nervous system, near the coordinates of the first safe place it ever had. The beginning of every attachment is always an earlier attachment. A cat's nose can identify its owner's scent from among a collection of scents that includes other familiar humans, strangers, and the scent of the owner's worn clothing. Olfactory research in cats shows that the feline nose contains approximately 200 million scent receptor cells, compared to roughly 5 million in humans, and that cats show clear discrimination between individual human scents, even when those scents are presented without the individuals. In paired choice experiments, cats presented with their owner's scent versus a stranger's scent orient toward sniff longer and return more frequently to the owner's scent, even in the absence of any other identifying cue. Your scent is a complete representation of you in the cat's brain. It arrives at your cat before you do. The cat has known you were coming long before you appeared. You are more present in the world than your body's location would suggest. A cat that has been handled gently and frequently by humans during the sensitive socialization window, roughly 2 to 7 weeks of age, shows measurably different neurological development than cats who were not. Studies in developmental neurobiology have found that early positive human contact produces lasting changes in the density of oxytocin receptors in the cat's brain, increasing the neural substrate available for bonding responses throughout the animal's life. Cats socialized during this window show higher affiliative behavior toward humans, lower stress responses in human presence, and enhanced capacity for the kind of oxytocin-mediated bonding this video traces. The capacity to fully receive human affection is, in part, built during the first weeks of a cat's life. The cat who comes to you fully is, in some measure, a cat whose early life made room for you. What was given before, we knew what it was doing, shapes what we are able to receive later. A cat's whiskers are not only sensing tools, they are social instruments. The 24 whiskers on a cat's muzzle, arranged in 4 rows on each side, are connected to deep sensory nerve endings and are capable of detecting air currents, spatial information, and pressure changes at a resolution that exceeds what the eyes can provide in dim light. But cats also use whisker position as a social signal. Whiskers pulled back against the face indicate threat, while whiskers fanned forward indicate interest, engagement, and approach intention. Cats consistently fan their whiskers toward their primary caregivers during positive interactions. The whiskers are not just gathering information, they are broadcasting it. When a cat's whiskers point toward you, the cat's face is, in the language of its body, reaching in your direction. Some openings toward another creature are only visible if you know what you are looking at. A cat shows a stress response when it overhears its owner arguing with another person, even when the cat is in another room and not involved in the interaction. Heart rate monitoring studies in domestic cats have found that cats show elevated cardiac activity and behavioral agitation in response to raised human voices in their environment, a response that is significantly higher toward the voices of their primary caregivers than toward voices of unfamiliar adults. The cat has emotionally registered you. The sound of your distress is not background noise to its nervous system. It is a signal that something in its environment requires attention. You live in the cat's vigilance, the way very few things do. It is tracking your emotional state, even when you don't know it is in the room. The people who care about you are always slightly disturbed by your distress. The cat is no different. A cat shows what researchers call referential looking, making eye contact with a human caregiver, and then shifting its gaze toward a desired object or location, and back again. This behavior, a form of intentional communication that requires a working model of the other's attention, was long considered the domain of primates and dogs. Its documentation in cats represents a significant revision in the understanding of feline social cognition. The cat is not simply reacting to its environment, it is managing your attention toward a goal. It knows that you have a gaze, that your gaze can be redirected, and that redirecting it can produce outcomes. It is treating you as a social partner with intentional states. The cat is communicating with you about what you should be looking at, to be communicated with intentionally, to be treated as someone whose attention can be redirected, is to be acknowledged as a presence with a mind. A cat matches its owner's sleep-wake cycle over time, shifting its natural crepuscular activity pattern toward alignment with when the human is active and at rest. Cats are innately most active at dawn and dusk, a pattern inherited from their wild ancestors, who were optimized as hunters at low light. Domestic cats in close human relationships progressively modify this schedule, becoming more active during daylight hours when their caregivers are present, and reducing dawn activity that would disrupt the caregiver's sleep. This is not a trivial adjustment. It involves rescheduling core biological drives around another being's rhythms. The cat adapts its nature across months to stay closer to yours. It reorganizes when it wants to be awake around when you are. To rearrange the timing of your life around another creature's rhythms is a form of commitment that requires no words. A cat's heart rate drops when petted by its primary caregiver. Cardiovascular monitoring studies confirm that sustained petting by a familiar, trusted human produces measurable parasympathetic nervous system activation in cats. Reduced heart rate, reduced respiratory rate, decreased muscle tension, These physiological changes are not observed at the same magnitude when cats are handled by strangers or when they are restrained, rather than freely choosing contact. The calming effect is specific to the combination of voluntary contact with a trusted individual. When you stroke a cat that chooses to stay beneath your hand, its body is responding to you specifically. The nervous system it carries learned that your touch means something. It has been learning that and updating the record. Each time you've done this, the body keeps accurate records of who has been safe. A cat's brain contains structures considered to be functional analogues to the mirror neuron systems found in primates. Research in comparative neuroscience has found evidence suggesting that cats possess neural circuits involved in social observation and learning. Circuits that may underlie the behavioral mirroring observed in closely bonded cat-human pairs. Cats in these relationships show synchrony with their caregivers, orienting toward whatever the person is attending to, slowing their movement when the caregiver's movement slows, and in some cases, appearing to yawn in response to a yawning caregiver. Whether this constitutes true mirror neuron function in cats remains under investigation. What is observable is that the cat's behavior has been calibrated over time to move in your direction. Its body has been quietly learning the grammar of your body. There is a kind of learning that happens below intention and leaves its mark anyway. A cat's relationship with a specific human changes its cortisol baseline, the background level of the stress hormone the cat carries through its ordinary days. Studies using cortisol measurements from fur samples, which provide a record of average hormone levels over weeks rather than the momentary spikes captured by blood tests, have found that cats in stable, close relationships with primary caregivers show lower chronic cortisol than cats in less stable or less affiliative household environments. The relationship is doing something metabolic. The presence of a person the cat trusts is not merely pleasant, it is physically regulating. Over time, your existence in the cat's life has changed the chemistry of its ordinary days. You are, in a very literal biological sense, part of what keeps it calm. Some relationships change the background of a life, not just its surface. A cat differentiates between being looked at with attention and being looked at without attention, and responds differently to each. Behavioral research in cat-human communication has found that cats are more likely to complete an approach when the caregiver's gaze is attentive and soft than when the caregiver is looking toward them distractedly or with a intense expression. The quality of the gaze matters. The cat can read whether you are truly seeing it or not. It approaches more when it feels seen, and holds back when it senses its presence is not registering what it needs. Before it comes the rest of the way, is to be actually noticed. The cat has been checking for this every time before it crossed the room toward you. Everyone, in some form, checks first to see if you are really looking. A cat stores individual humans as distinct categories in its memory. Studies of cat memory and recognition have found that cats maintain distinct mental representations of individual people in their household. Representations that include the person's scent signature, vocal signature, visual appearance, behavioral patterns, and history of interaction. These representations are stable over time. Cats recognize familiar humans after separations of months and show clear recognition responses. Behavioral changes. Orientation. Approach. Toward people they have not seen for extended periods. The mental category the cat has built for you persists through your absence. You exist in the cat's memory as a complete, specific individual, not a generic human, but you, with your particular sounds and scent and weight of step. It has been building this record since the first time it met you. To be known, actually known, with your specifics retained, is different from being recognized. A cat that trusts a human will eat in proximity to them more readily than in their absence. Food consumption in cats is governed partly by the threat assessment of the eating environment. Cats are vulnerable while eating and prefer to do so in locations they perceive as safe. Research comparing cats' food intake in the presence of their primary caregiver versus alone or with a stranger shows that cats consume more and show fewer vigilance interruptions when eating near their trusted person. This is a behavioral expression of the cat's risk calculus. With you there, the environment is assessed as safe enough that watchfulness can be reduced during vulnerability. Your presence, specifically, makes eating safer. The cat has classified you among its most fundamental protections. Some people make the world feel safe enough to let your guard down in. This is a rare thing. A cat in pain or distress seeks out its primary caregiver before other household members. Veterinary behavioral observations gathered from post-surgical recovery, illness monitoring, and injury response consistently note that cats in distress orient preferentially toward their primary caregiver for proximity and contact. This holds even when other individuals are closer or more immediately available. The cat moves toward the specific person, not toward help, in the abstract. Its distress state activates the attachment system, and the attachment system points toward you. In the cat's neurological architecture, you are stored in the same region as safety. When everything else is uncertain, the cat navigates toward what it knows is not. The people we go to when we are frightened are rarely the most logical choices. They are the most real ones. A cat's oxytocin level rises measurably during positive interactions with its primary caregiver, petting, play, mutual grooming, shared rest. This has been documented in studies using blood sampling before and after cat-human interaction sessions. Oxytocin, produced in the hypothalamus and released by the posterior pituitary, functions as a modulatory neuropeptide. It reduces amygdala reactivity, promotes feelings of safety and trust, and enhances memory consolidation for positive social interactions. In the human half of the same interactions, oxytocin also rises. The bonding is bidirectional, chemical, and cumulative. Each time you and your cat have a moment of genuine warmth, both of your brains are storing that moment with an increased neurological weight. The relationship is being built in parallel, in both nervous systems. At the same time, 40 facts in, and the oxytocin loop has been traced all the way through. You are not outside this chemistry. You are half of it. If you're still awake, and something in these facts has settled quietly against you the way a cat does, consider subscribing to Sleepy Animal. where we trace the science of animals, one sleepy fact at a time. And now, back into the dark. Our cat, approaching middle age, around 7 to 10 years, shows a marked shift in its proximity-seeking behavior, where younger cats may cycle between independence and closeness. Older cats increasingly choose sustained proximity over solitary activity, resting near or against their primary caregivers for longer periods and with greater consistency. Longitudinal behavioral studies of aging cats find that this shift accompanies changes in activity level, sensory acuity, and thermoregulatory need. But these physiological factors alone do not fully account for the degree of the shift. Older cats also show increased social monitoring of their caregivers and more frequent affiliative initiations. The relationship deepens with age. The cat, as it grows old in your presence, moves toward you more. It has more years of evidence now. It knows more clearly where it belongs. Some bonds become more themselves over time. The cat shows this plainly. A cat's purr changes in acoustic structure, depending on whether it is expressing contentment or solicitation. Research published in Current Biology identified a specific solicitation purr, one that embeds a higher frequency cry-like component at approximately 300 to 600 Hz within the lower purr frequency, that cats produce when they want something from a human, most often food or attention. This embedded component activates a similar auditory processing response in human listeners as infant cries do, producing a sense of urgency that the baseline contentment purr does not. Cats appear to learn, through individual experience with their specific caregivers, to use this signal when solicitation is contextually appropriate. The cat has learned what kind of sound moves you specifically. It is not manipulating you so much as learning your language well enough to ask. Knowing how to reach someone requires having paid attention to them. A cat distinguishes between when a human is looking at it and when the human's eyes are closed, and modifies its behavior accordingly. Experimental studies placing cats in environments where their caregivers alternated between open-eyed attention and closed-eyed inattention found that cats approached more frequently, vocalized more, and initiated contact more during open-eyed conditions. This discrimination, the cat monitoring your eyes to assess your availability, is a foundation of social cognition. The cat knows when you can see it. It knows when you are present in the interactive sense, rather than merely physically proximate. It has learned to read your attentional state and to time its approaches accordingly. The cat is not guessing whether you are with it. It is checking. It has been checking every time, for as long as you've known each other. Social creatures spend a meaningful portion of their lives reading faces for signs of availability. A cat in a multi-person household forms a distinct, differentiated relationship with each person it regularly interacts with. Each relationship has its own characteristics, its own vocalization patterns, proximity preferences, grooming frequencies, and contact initiations that do not generalize across individuals. The cat that bunts against one person's legs and trills toward them each morning may show none of this behavior toward another household member. It has known for the same duration. Research in comparative animal behavior notes that the capacity to form multiple, differentiated social bonds is cognitively demanding. It requires maintaining separate mental models of multiple individuals and calibrating behavior differently in each relationship. The cat you live with carries a specific relational model of you, not of people, not of humans, but of you in particular. The love that knows the difference is a more precise thing than the love that doesn't. A cat that has been mistreated by a previous owner can form a new, secure attachment to a subsequent caregiver. Though this process requires longer durations and more consistent positive interactions than attachment formation in cats without adverse early experience. Research on rehomed cats with documented histories of neglect or abuse finds that while initial behavioral responses to new caregivers are more guarded and stress responses more readily activated, the neurological substrate for bonding, the oxytocin receptor system, the limbic circuitry involved in attachment, remains functional and capable of being engaged. The cat's attachment system was not destroyed by its history. It was only waiting. Given time and consistency, it becomes available again. The cat with the hard past reaches towards you eventually, and when it does, it means something that it did not mean for the ones who came before. Some forms of trust are built more slowly and are worth more for it. A cat's whiskers can detect changes in air current that precede a person's approach, the displaced air of a human moving through an adjacent room, coming down a hallway, or nearing a closed door. This mechanoreceptor sensitivity means that the cat may have a brief preview of arrivals that the arriving person cannot know about. Behavioral observations consistently note that cats orient toward the direction of an approaching caregiver before auditory or visual cues are available to the observer. The cat has already turned toward you before you knew it was aware of you. It was preparing, in some measure, for your arrival before you announced it. It has been doing this, quietly, every time you came home, for the whole of the time you have lived together. Some presences are felt before they arrive. Some have always been. A cat will, in certain circumstances, lick a human caregiver, most frequently the hands, hair, or face. This behavior, allogrooming, is observed in cats between closely bonded individuals and functions to reinforce social bonds and communicate affiliation. In feral colonies, allogrooming is concentrated among cats with the highest degrees of social affiliation, mothers and offspring, littermates who remain bonded through adulthood, long-term cohabitants with established positive relationships. The extension of this behavior to humans places the human caregiver in the cat's behavioral vocabulary, in the category of most valued social partner. The roughness of the tongue, the persistence of the grooming despite the human's much larger size, these are not incidental. The cat is doing for you what it does only for those it is closest to. You are being tended. To be tended to be the recipient of careful, unasked for attention, lands differently than being helped. A cat monitors subtle changes in its caregiver's facial expression and responds to them. Experimental research, using still photographs and video clips of human faces, presented to cats, found that cats showed differential behavioral responses to happy versus angry human expressions, orienting more toward happy expressions. showing greater willingness to approach and explore in the presence of happy-faced owners, and reduced exploratory behavior when shown owner angry expressions. The effect was stronger for the cat's own owner than for a stranger's face, indicating that the cat had learned to read its specific caregiver's facial signals rather than simply responding to general human emotional displays. The cat has studied your face. It knows what your expressions mean. It has been learning the map of your emotional states from your features for as long as it has lived with you. The face is always teaching something. The question is whether anyone is reading it carefully enough. A cat will, during a prolonged illness of its caregiver, show behavioral changes consistent with monitoring and protective behavior, increased proximity seeking, reduced independent activity, more frequent physical contact initiations. These behavioral changes have been documented by veterinarians and behavioral researchers studying household cats during owner illnesses, and are interpreted within the framework of the attachment system. The caregiver is in a compromised state, and the attachment system responds by increasing proximity. Some of these changes persist even after the owner recovers, suggesting that the period of illness left a trace in the cat's relational pattern, a slight recalibration towards staying closer than before. The cat is not equipped to understand illness. It is equipped to respond to diminishment in its safe person and to stay near it. Something in us recognizes when the ones we rely on need to be held more closely. A cat in its final months of life often shows increased closeness to its primary caregiver, more contact initiations, longer periods of sustained proximity, a new willingness to be held that may not have been present earlier in the relationship. Veterinary behaviorists note this as a reliable clinical observation, though its mechanism is not fully understood. Some portion of it may be physiological. Reduced thermoregulatory efficiency makes external warmth more valuable. Reduced sensory acuity makes proximity to a familiar olfactory anchor more stabilizing. But behavioral observation consistently notes something beyond these physiological factors: a quality of directedness, a fullness of presence in the relationship that is difficult to account for by mechanism alone. We are here, now, halfway through. The arc has carried us from the first weeks of a cat's life to its last, and what runs through all of it: kneading, bunting, the slow blink, the oxytocin rising in both bodies, is a single thread. Every time your cat came toward you, its biology was saying something it had no other way to say. Pause here, halfway through. You've been listening for a while now. Your breathing has slowed. The weight of the day has been settling, fact by fact, into something quieter. Notice where your body is touching the surface beneath you. Notice the temperature of the air against your skin. This is also an animal's experience: awareness of warmth, of weight, of the particular safety of a specific place. The cat in these facts was not doing anything spectacular. It was doing small things, repeatedly, because they were directed towards something it valued. Each slow blink, each return, each purr pressed into the dark. You've been doing something similar this whole time. You kept listening. You stayed. Rest now. We continue soon. A cat's scent memory for its primary caregiver persists for years, possibly for the duration of the cat's life. Olfactory memory in mammals is processed through the piriform cortex and the amygdala, a pathway that connects scent directly to emotional memory in a way that bypasses the cognitive filtering of other sensory systems. Scent memories laid down in emotionally significant contexts are among the most durable memories mammals form. Studies on cat recognition of familiar individuals after extended absences show that olfactory recognition persists even after 2 to 3 years of separation. The cat may not retain you the way a human retains a person, but the smell of you, the specific, composite chemical signature that is entirely yours, is stored in the oldest, most durable part of its memory. It knows you the way the body knows things. There are forms of memory that outlast the mind's ability to tell their story. A cat's tail, artrest, carries continuous emotional information. The position and motion of the tail, held high, tucked down, lashing, twitching at the tip, curled over the feet, are reliable indicators of the cat's current emotional state, and cats with established human relationships show consistent tail position patterns in the presence of their caregivers versus strangers. The slow, easy sway of a resting, relaxed tail, quite different from the rapid, tense lash of an agitated one, occurs most frequently when the cat is in the presence of its bonded person. The tail is not performing, it is simply carrying, without decision, the state of the animal. When a cat's tail is easy in your presence, the ease is real. The body tells the truth when no one is performing. A cat that is startled by a loud noise will orient toward its primary caregiver before it orients toward the source of the sound. This behavior, using the caregiver as a social referencing anchor in moments of uncertainty, has been documented in cats using adapted attachment assessment protocols. The cat looks at you first. It reads your response before it decides on its own. This is social referencing, using a trusted other's reaction to a novel stimulus as information about whether the stimulus is threatening. It requires the cat to have a working model of you as a reliable interpreter of the environment. You are not just a source of comfort, you are a source of information. The cat has learned that your reaction to things is worth checking before it forms its own. Some trust means letting someone else's assessment count more than your first instinct. A cat adjusts its vocalization, volume, and frequency based on feedback from its caregiver. Behavioral research in cat-human communication has found that cats whose caregivers respond consistently to vocalizations show higher rates of vocalization toward those caregivers over time, while cats whose vocalizations receive inconsistent responses show more variable vocal behavior. This is operant learning applied to communication. The cat is not communicating instinctively with you in a fixed way. It is communicating in the way it has learned works with you specifically. The volume it uses, the insistence, the timing, these have been shaped by your particular patterns of response. The cat's voice, toward you, is partly your creation. You trained each other without knowing you were doing it. Every long relationship creates a private language. Most of us never notice when it's being built. A cat's body temperature regulation is partly social. Cats have a relatively high surface area to volume ratio, meaning they lose heat more quickly than larger mammals and must generate or acquire it more consistently. In wild felid species, social thermoregulation, sharing warmth through physical contact, is observed in lions and in related cats, sharing communal spaces. In domestic cats, which evolved from more solitary ancestors, social thermoregulation appears to have been extended through domestication and individual learning to include humans as thermal partners. When a cat rests against you, it is partly seeking warmth that is yours specifically, not because you are the nearest warm object, but because you are the warm object it has learned to associate with safety and comfort. Your warmth and your presence have become one thing in the cat's memory. We become the warmth we carry, only in the perception of those who have slept against us. A cat will bring a toy to a caregiver who is visibly distressed and leave it nearby without further engagement. This behavior, distinct from active solicitation play, has been noted in observational accounts and a small number of behavioral case reports. The cat does not ask to play. It places the object and withdraws, allowing it to remain available. Ethologists suggest this may represent a resource-offering gesture toward a social partner perceived to be in need. The same motivational system that drives mother cats to bring prey to kittens, here directed toward a distressed human. The evidence remains largely observational. What is consistent across these accounts is the same. The cat cannot fix what is wrong. It can place what it has near you and stay. That, in its vocabulary, is a form of help, offering what you have, even when you know it isn't enough, is still offering. A cat's eyes, in dim light, expand to pupils that cover nearly the entire visible iris, up to 135 times the area of the contracted pupil in bright light. This degree of pupil dilation gives cats the ability to gather light in near darkness at a level that provides functional vision at a fraction of the light intensity required by humans. In the dark room where you sleep and a cat rests nearby, the cat can see you. It can observe you clearly, while you cannot observe it in the same way. It watches over you in the dark, in the most literal sense, with a visual system built for exactly this. The cat has been seeing you in the dark this entire time. It knew you were there. It never had to guess. There is a quiet comfort in being watched over by something that can see in the dark. A cat's response to pain or injury is modified by the presence of its primary caregiver. Veterinary pain assessment research has found that cats show reduced pain-indicative behaviors, reduced grimacing, more natural body positioning, resumed voluntary movement, when in the presence of their caregiver versus alone or with unfamiliar handlers. Oxytocin, released through affiliative contact with a trusted individual, has documented analgesic properties, activating descending pain inhibition pathways in the central nervous system. Your presence, specifically, may reduce what your cat feels when it hurts. Researchers have also found that human stress and discomfort can be measurably reduced in the presence of trusted companions. and some studies suggest that proximity to cats may contribute to this calming effect, though the specific mechanisms are still being explored. You may be reducing each other's pain. You may have been doing this all along. The word comfort is almost too small for what the body does when someone safe is near. A cat's relationship with its primary caregiver shows characteristics of what researchers call dyadic regulation. Each member of the pair influencing the other's physiological state, and each being influenced in return. Studies measuring heart rate variability and cortisol levels simultaneously in cat-human pairs during interaction found that the pairs showed physiological synchrony, periods of concordant calm, that were not explained by shared environmental triggers alone. The two nervous systems were affecting each other. The cat's calm deepened your calm. Your calm deepened the cat's. The relationship operates as a shared regulatory system. You were never just near each other. You were, in a biological sense, inside each other's nervous systems, quietly adjusting each other's baselines. To be physiologically stabilized by someone's presence is one of the deepest forms of companionship there is. A cat can detect subtle physiological changes in its human caregiver that precede certain medical events. This has been documented in case reports of cats alerting owners to changes in blood sugar, oncoming seizures, and other physiological shifts before the owner had any conscious awareness. The mechanism is attributed to the cat's sensitivity to alterations in body chemistry, movement, and possibly changes in volatile compounds the person produces during physiological change. These responses are not trained behaviors. They appear to develop through years of close proximity and careful attention to a specific person. What the cat learns about your body, it learns from living with you. Some things are only known from long attention. What is learned from long attention has no equivalent substitute. A cat adjusts its grooming of a human caregiver based on the caregiver's apparent emotional state. Observational studies of alog grooming in domestic cats have noted that the frequency of grooming directed at humans tends to increase during periods when the caregiver shows behavioral indicators of low mood or distress. The behavior follows the same logic as the affiliative grooming observed between closely bonded cats during periods of a bonded partner's difficulty. It is contact offered in response to perceived need. The cat does not understand what is wrong. It understands, at the level of its social nervous system, that you are not as you usually are, and that its role in such moments is to maintain contact. It grooms you more when you need it more. It has been tracking this about you without telling you. Care that doesn't announce itself is still care. Often it is more a cat's slow blink, when reciprocated by the human, appears to produce a positive response in the cat. Reduced tension, increased willingness to remain in proximity, and often a return blink. The 2020 study by Humphrey and colleagues at the University of Sussex documented that cats approach more readily after a slow blink exchange, suggesting the gesture functions as a genuine signal of comfort and safety in both directions. Separate research into cat-human interaction and oxytocin suggests that positive visual exchanges with bonded individuals are associated with affiliative neurochemistry. Though the precise hormonal measurement of the slow blink specifically remains an area of ongoing research, when you slow blink back at a cat, You are not performing a gesture. You are speaking in a language the cat understands, and it responds to being answered in kind. Some conversations take place entirely in the body. They are no less real for that. A cat that is carried by a trusted caregiver shows reduced heart rate and reduced stress indicators compared to being carried by a stranger, even when the handling is physically identical. The physiological calming effect is specific to the trusted individual. The cat's nervous system has bound the sensory signature of you, your scent, your body heat, the particular pressure and movement of your specific arms, to the neurological experience of safety. Being held by you is categorically different from being held by someone who is not you, even when the physical parameters are the same. You have been building this. Every time you picked it up, every time you carried it through something, without knowing you were also building a physiological archive. The feeling of being held by someone specific is irreplaceable by the feeling of being held by anyone. A cat's brain shows differential activation in response to its owner's scent versus neutral scents in areas associated with reward. Neuroimaging research in cats, using methods adapted for the feline brain, has documented activity in reward-associated regions in response to the caregiver's scent. The same broad regions are activated in studies of human responses to the scent of close social partners. The cat's brain appears to process your scent as a positive signal, not merely a familiar one, but one associated with good experience. You are, neurologically, something the cat's brain moves toward. The cat's brain registers your smell the way it registers something worth returning to. To register in another's brain as something worth returning to, that is a particular form of mattering. A cat carries the energetic cost of vigilance differently in the presence of its bonded human. Vigilance, the maintained alertness required when an animal perceives its environment as potentially unsafe, is metabolically expensive. Animals in states of heightened vigilance show elevated cortisol, reduced digestive efficiency, and disrupted sleep architecture. In the presence of their primary caregiver, cats show measurably reduced vigilance behaviors, less environmental scanning, more time in relaxed rest, lower resting heart rate. The metabolic cost of watchfulness decreases. The cat's body is spending less energy keeping itself safe because you are there. You have become part of its safety infrastructure. Your presence frees up something in the cat that it would otherwise have to spend on its own. Here, between facts 65 and 75, the resolution is assembling. The cost of staying safe alone is real. Some presences pay part of it. A cat shows a preference for resting on surfaces that carry its caregiver's scent. Unwashed clothing, worn blankets, used pillows, over new, unscented versions of the same materials. This preference has been documented in separation studies, where cats given a choice between their owner's worn garment and a stranger's worn garment consistently orient toward and spend more time with their owner's scent-bearing item. The preference appears unrelated to surface temperature or texture. The scent itself is what the cat is seeking. During your absence, the cat finds the closest available approximation of your presence. It rests in the shape of you that remains. It goes to you, even when you are not there. What we seek when someone is absent tells us exactly what their presence means. A cat shows behavioral changes in the period before its primary caregiver leaves on a trip, even before any travel preparation is visible. Owner-reported data and some observational studies note that cats begin showing altered behavior, increased clinginess, more frequent vocalization, reduced independent activity in the days before owner travel, before suitcases appear, before routines change. The mechanism is not fully established. Some researchers propose that subtle shifts in the caregiver's behavior and physiological state in anticipation of travel, altered stress hormones, modified attention patterns, may be perceptible to the cat before they are consciously organized by the human. The cat knows before you've finished knowing. It was reading you before you had read yourself. There are people who sense what is coming in you before you've fully understood it yourself. A cat's play behavior toward its caregiver is qualitatively different from its predatory behavior toward prey. While both involve stalking, pouncing, and rapid movement, cat play directed toward a bonded human shows behavioral elements absent in predatory contexts: deliberate signal failures, self-handicapping, repeated approaches to re-engage a retreating play partner that serve to sustain the social interaction rather than complete the hunt. Play between a cat and a trusted human is play in the full social sense, an activity undertaken for its own sake that maintains and reinforces the bond, modulated around the partner's capacity to continue. The cat plays with you differently than it hunts. With you, the point is the playing. With you, the point is the staying together in it. Play is always slightly about the person you are playing with. A cat nurses its wound, licking, cleaning, monitoring, but will allow its caregiver to treat the same wound with less resistance than it allows any other handler. Veterinary behavioral data consistently note that primary caregivers can manage minor wound care, medication, and physical examination in cats that would resist or flee from unfamiliar handling. The cat has, through accumulated experience, learned that your hands have done things to it that were uncomfortable and then were over, and that the period of discomfort was followed by a return to safety. It lets you in because it knows you come back out the other side. Trust is built from accumulated evidence that the difficult parts were worth it. What we allow from the people we trust is a measure of how deeply we trust them. A cat in a multi-cat household maintains its primary attachment to one specific human, even when other humans offer more food, more playtime, or more frequent interaction. Research on attachment in multi-human households consistently finds that primary attachment does not correlate with frequency of feeding or total interaction time. It correlates with quality and consistency of responsive interaction. The human who responds most reliably and accurately to the cat's communicative signals. The cat chose you not because you were most present. The cat chose you because you were most seen. In the cat's record of all the people it has known, your responses landed differently. That difference became everything. Frequency is not the same as quality. The cat knows the difference. A cat's adult vocalization repertoire, the specific sounds it produces toward its primary caregiver, continues to develop throughout the relationship. Longitudinal studies following cat-human pairs over 3 or more years have documented gradual additions and modifications to the cat's vocalization patterns over time. New sounds that appear in later years of a relationship, refinements in frequency and timing, apparent responses to the caregiver's patterns of reply. The language between you is still being written. The cat, in its 11th year with you, is still learning new ways to reach you. The relationship never arrived at a fixed state. It is still in progress. Both of you have continued to become more fluent in each other, and that process has not stopped. Long relationships are not settled things. They continue to develop in the direction of the people inside them. A cat's physiological state during petting synchronizes with that of the human doing the petting. Biofeedback research, in which both cat and human wear heart rate monitors during petting sessions, has found that in established cat-human pairs, the two heart rates tend to converge toward a shared midpoint during sustained petting. The humans slowing slightly, the cat slowing more, until both approach a shared rhythm. This co-regulation develops over the course of a sustained session and is more pronounced in established pairs than in cat-stranger pairs. You and the cat reach the same rhythm together, not by coincidence or proximity, but because both nervous systems have learned to regulate, partly in reference to the other. You slow together. You rest together. The biology is shared. Some forms of peace can only be found in the same frequency as another living thing. A cat that dies leaves an identifiable trace in the owner's stress and bonding hormone baseline. Changes in chronic cortisol and oxytocin levels, analogous to those observed in humans following the loss of a close social partner. Research on pet bereavement has found that, particularly in individuals for whom the cat was the primary social companion, the hormonal disruption following loss shows parallels with the physiological changes associated with human grief. This is not metaphor. The regulatory function the cat was performing, the oxytocin contribution, the shared heart rate, the cortisol buffering, stops abruptly. The body notices. The nervous system that had been co-regulated is now regulating alone again. The cat was doing something real. Its absence is felt in the chemistry. The grief is as real as what was lost. And what was lost was real. A cat's resting body temperature, when in contact with its caregiver, may stabilize at a slightly higher level than when resting alone, not because the contact is producing new heat, but because the physiological calm associated with safe, affiliative contact may reduce the body's need to work as hard at temperature maintenance. The warmth you perceive when a cat rests against you is partly your own warmth, returned. The regulation is circular. The cat helps you maintain warmth. You help the cat maintain warmth. And both may be slightly warmer for the exchange than either would be apart. The warmth between you is shared. It is neither yours nor the cat's separately. It only exists in the contact. Some things can only be generated together. A cat sits in a shaft of afternoon light and doesn't move for a long time. Its eyes are half closed. Its breathing is shallow and regular. It is not asleep and not quite awake. It is in the particular middle state that cats inhabit for large portions of their waking hours. Researchers call this quiescent vigilance. The body is resting, but the sensory systems are loosely monitoring. In households where the caregiver is present, cats in this state are more likely to be positioned facing the direction of the caregiver than facing any other part of the room. Even in their most private rest, they are oriented toward you. They are never quite not with you. The big idea that has been assembling itself across these 75 facts can now be said: your love is your cat's native language. Not the language of food, not the language of play, but the language of presence, of specific warmth, of heartbeat and breath, of the particular safety of your voice in the next room. The 100 facts are answering the central question now. The stroke doesn't just feel good. It was always writing itself into something permanent. Let yourself become very still. You've traveled a long way tonight, through the interior life of an animal that was never supposed to need you, and did anyway. That made a nervous system out of proximity to you, that learned the weight of your step. Let your breathing deepen now. Let your body settle the way a cat settles. Completely, without reservation, into the warmth of a decided place. You are not so different from what you've been hearing about. Your body is also seeking warmth. Your nervous system is also keeping a map of who has been safe. Your sleep is also deeper when something trusted is near. The distance between you and the animal in these facts has been dissolving all along. Rest in it now. We are almost at the end. A cat, late at night, comes to rest against the person who is still awake. It does not ask to play. It does not vocalize. It simply arrives and settles and stays. Something in it decided that this is where the night goes. That decision was made quietly, over years. Tonight, it only looks like stillness. A cat knows the difference between your lap when you are tense and your lap when you are at rest. Its nervous system reads yours. It chooses the second one more often. When it can. It has always been waiting for you to put things down. It will wait as long as it takes. A cat will wait, patiently, for as long as it takes, outside a closed door. It does not scratch. It does not leave. It simply holds its position in the hallway. The door is not a problem to be solved. You are on the other side of it. That is enough of a reason to stay. A cat's purr, at its lowest frequency, can be felt more than it can be heard. When you hold a purring cat against your chest, the vibration moves through your sternum before your ears have registered it. The warmth enters before the sound does. Some things are received before they are understood. The body knows first. A cat cleans the spot on its head where you last touched it, and then cleans it again. It is not removing something. It is incorporating you. It is making you part of what it carries forward into the rest of the evening. You stay in it longer than you know. A cat in a warm lap does not stay because it cannot leave. It can leave at any moment, and sometimes does, for no visible reason, and returns 5 minutes later. When it stays, it is because it has assessed the situation and found it sufficient. The cat, given all other options, chose here. It chose this particular warmth. It chose you, specifically, again. A cat will follow you to the room where you are briefly alone and sit outside the door without pressing. It does not need to be let in. It simply keeps the coordinates of where you are. In the cat's internal map, your location is always noted. You are always somewhere it knows about. A cat that has been gently stroked for several minutes shows elevated oxytocin not just during the stroking, but for up to 20 minutes afterward. The warmth lingers in the chemistry long after the touch ends. What you give continues inside it past the moment you give it. You are still there, biochemically, after you have moved on. A cat notices when a new person enters its home and orients toward its caregiver for reassurance. It reads your face before it decides how to feel about the stranger. In that moment, you are the thing that makes the new thing navigable. You have become the measure of safety itself, the reference point by which everything else is assessed. A cat, old, and moving more slowly, will still cover the same ground. It always has to be near you. It takes longer now. The joints are stiffer, but the direction has not changed. The same body that once crossed the room in a single leap still makes its way to where you are. The speed has changed. The intention has not. A cat seeks warmth with the same neurological drive that guides it towards social contact. In domesticated cats, these two drives, thermal comfort and affiliative closeness, appear to have become linked, so that the warmth of a specific person and the safety of that person's presence are encoded together. You became, somewhere in the years of living together, both things at once. The warmth of you and the safety of you are the same signal now in the cat's brain. A cat that has just been held will often stay near the place where it was held, as though the space retains something. In the olfactory sense, it does. Your scent remains on the surface, on the air, for minutes after you have moved. The cat is resting in the residue of you. It chose the place where you most recently were. A cat's slow blink, given freely and without prompting in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, is an act that requires nothing. It is not a request. It is not a greeting. It is simply the cat deciding, in that moment, to show you that it is at peace with you existing. This is, in the language of its body, something close to love. It costs nothing. It offers everything. The cat in these facts is resting now. Its breathing is slow. Its weight is settled. Its face is turned toward where you are. Your breathing is slowing too. There is a warmth somewhere near you, or a warmth you are remembering, or a warmth that is simply yours. Inside this resting body, the cat is not separate from sleep. Neither are you. Let what was built across these 88 facts hold you now. You already know how to do this. The cat showed you. It has been showing you all along. A cat asleep. Its chest rising and falling. Its paws soft and uncurled. It chose this place to sleep. It chose this room. It chose to be near you. And then it let itself rest completely. This is the whole of what trust looks like in the body of a cat. A cat has been, without knowing it, a small daily practice of being received. Every time you petted it, and it stayed, something in you was also reassured. The receiving was always mutual. It was never only for one of you. A cat's nervous system at rest carries a measurable signature of its life with you. Lower cortisol, steadier oxytocin, a sleep that goes deeper. This is what safety looks like in the body of an animal over time. This is what your presence, accumulated across years, left behind. A cat does not repair a rupture in the way we understand repair. It simply returns. It comes back to where you are and begins again from there. The return is the whole of the reconciliation. It has been returning every time for as long as you have known each other. A cat holds the warmth of a lap for up to 30 minutes after leaving it, measurable in the fur nearest the skin. You persist in the cat, physically, long after contact ends. You are warmer in its chemistry than you may have known. The warmth does not stop when the touching does. A cat, bonded to a human caregiver across many years, shows, in its cortisol record, a lower chronic stress baseline than at the beginning of the relationship. The relationship, over time, made the world a calmer place for the cat to live in. That was something the two of you built together. Slowly, without a plan. It took years. It worked. A cat chooses, without being placed there, to rest in the space where its caregiver usually sits. The warmth is gone. The scent remains. The shape of your absence is a place it wants to be. It is, in its quiet way, keeping you company even when you are not there. A cat's oxytocin system, over a lifetime of accumulated contact with one human, becomes more responsive, more readily activated, more accustomed to being engaged by your specific presence. You change the chemistry of what it is capable of feeling. The love you gave did not disappear into the air. It was incorporated into the structure. It altered what the cat's body can do. A cat sleeps more deeply near you than anywhere else. Its brain, measuring safety, chose deeper rest when you are in the room. The brain chose you as the condition under which it would let go. It has been making this choice, quietly, every night. A cat does not measure what you have given. It simply returns, again and again, to where the giving happened. Every day, without record keeping, without comparison. The return is the whole record. It is everything the cat knows how to say about what you mean to it. A cat curled at the end of a bed, in the dark, breathing. A human in the same room, breathing. Two nervous systems, having spent years in each other's presence, arriving separately at the same quiet. This is what 100 facts trace back to. Two animals, resting in the same dark, having decided, without deciding, that this is where they belong. A cat closes its eyes, not because it has given up watching, because it is safe enough, here, with you, to stop. The central question has been answered, not in words but in chemistry, in behavior, in the years of small decisions that accumulate into a bond. Every stroke you gave was received. Every time you came home, the cat's brain registered you as warmth. Every slow blink was answered. Your love is your cat's native language. It always was, It has been reading you in it since the first time you touched it, and it has never stopped. We began tonight at the very beginning of this bond. A kitten pressing into its mother's warmth, kneading and purring, its nervous system learning what safe feels like. We've come to the end in the same dark, with a cat whose brain holds your scent as something worth returning to, whose sleep goes deeper because you are near, whose oxytocin has been rising quietly every time you have been together. We crossed years of shared history and arrived at one sleeping body at the end of a bed. The arc was always this small. This is where it was always going. The cat taught nothing. It intended to teach. It only lived close to you for as long as it lived. And in that living, science found something it keeps finding in places where creatures chose closeness. That presence, over time, changes the structure of what is possible between two beings. You are part of each other now. That is not sentiment. That is biology. If tonight's journey felt like something worth returning to, Sleepy Animal has 100 more facts waiting about the animals who, in their quiet ways, keep showing us something we already knew. Subscribe to stay in that world, one sleepy soul at a time. Whatever you've been carrying tonight, the wish to know you are truly received, truly felt, truly worth coming back to. You don't need to carry it into sleep. That question has been answered tonight, one fact at a time. Tonight, you belong only to yourself. You've traveled through the interior life of an animal that chose you, through the chemistry, the behavior, the years of small decisions that accumulated into something neither of you planned and both of you built. You can allow these thoughts of cats and warmth and oxytocin to fade now, like a purr, dissolving into the quiet of a late room, present, then softer, then simply part of the stillness, leaving only the warm, unheld calm behind. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, as if the particular gravity of being fully received is settling around you, gentle and complete, and simply holding you. If sleep comes, let it carry you the way a cat returns to a warm lap, not hurried, not forced, but arriving because this is where it goes, into a realm where time and weight no longer matter. If your eyes are still open, the next video is waiting for you, ready to continue the journey. But if they're closed, stay there. Stay in the darkness that feels safe and warm. Tomorrow, the cat will still be there. The bond will still be there. The warmth will still be real. But tonight belongs to stillness. Rest well, sleepy soul. And remember, your love was always being received. Good night.